Hello, lovely people. My name is Alex White, and it's my pleasure to introduce two of the three people who are doing some fantastic fighting monkey practice for us in Melbourne. On screen here is Eduardo and Dean. G'day, guys.
G'day.
Good morning.
And then off screen is Colin. We'll chat about him behind his back, but he hasn't had the opportunity to get on this morning. But before we get more into the three of you, we do need to, or I feel like we need to place fighting monkey practice on some sort of spectrum or field for people, because I talk about fighting monkey with people and, it's a peculiar name. They're wondering whether it's like some sort of boxing thing or whatever. But for people who haven't come across fighting monkey practice before, can you give us a little bit of a placement of it, like in comparison to other things that people are doing, or perhaps it's beyond comparison? How do you place fighting monkey practice for people who don't know about it?
Ooh, you were shaking your head, so you go ahead.
I can go ahead, yes. So fighting monkey is a little bit coming from the philosophy where if we have lots of different movement disciplines or sports, each one of them tends to individually have its own little frame and rules and physical expression of how it works. And when we're getting into those frames for a long time, it can make us a little bit stuck in the habits there, both in terms of how our body moves and how it's shaped by that practice, but also how we think. And so one answer is that fighting monkey is trying to break those frames and provide a connection between them all so that we could have a more broad physical expression, both in terms of the movement qualities and, I guess, self-expression, who I am, but also our creative thinking and how we see the world. So that's kind of one answer, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree. I see it as this cross motion analysis of different realities, with an aim of understanding principles, or even before principle, I would say the questions that have driven people to find principle into their realm, with the aim to find a very open source or open ground for people to speculate about movement, longevity, and creativity, and try to weave all these ideas beyond a physical practice, where physical might have been interpreted as separated from everyday living, where physical might have been interpreted as physical training, and that's it. But we want to, I guess, cross bridges, ask questions that we can investigate through the body, and through the body experience beyond the body itself, if it makes any sense, like in everyday living.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Certainly to myself, it's really lovely to hear the frame that Dean gave there in terms of, a lot of people I'm around are either they're dancers, or they're gym junkies, or they're tennis players, and they tend to sit in those frames really, really quite steadily, or even maybe they're not movers, maybe they're just doing one thing majorly in their life, and to be able to come into a space where through movement you're adapting, you're changing, and you're creating new patterns is a fantastic opportunity, I think, for anyone, whether they regard themselves as movers or not. And Eduardo, your comment there on taking things beyond. I mean, when I used to do yoga, which I don't enjoy anymore because it's so linear, but I did always enjoy teachers who taught us to take things off the mat and away from the practice itself. And I find these days, fighting monkey practice and other practices, it's fantastic when you're in the kitchen, or when you're, I don't know, I do a lot of maintenance around this property. lifting heavy things, moving them around, whatever, that the practice starts to become part of how you interact with the world, not just sitting there in the square doing the things. So I hope that gives a little bit of a snippet, but now obviously the next question is people wanting to know more about yourselves. This event, called Decode, I think you're about to tell me that that's some sort of workings of your three names, which is delightful, and it's inspired by Fighting Monkey. I think just for a quick context for people on that is that instead of Fighting Monkey sort of necessarily certifying or being very rigid in, right, you're a level 3 mover, you can go and do these things now. Inspired by FM is a classification amongst teachers who have done a lot of time, perhaps mentorship with Fighting Monkey, with Joseph and Linda. And so these three gentlemen we have here have done their time. So perhaps you could individually and reasonably briefly chat about your time within FM practice and within your other movement worlds, and what you're bringing to this day.
Okay, this time, yeah, it's fair. Okay, I'll do it first. So this inspired by FM, I'll take it as a free ground where I share my interpretation of the practice. So I do not put there only things that I have experienced with FM at an event or at any intensive necessarily, or other workshops or mentorship. I'll try to tweak things in my own way, and I think that that's the beauty of this inspired by FM idea, where every practitioner can present those principles in a different way, both in terms of content and in terms of clearly the way we present as we communicate. So my experience with FM and this inspired by FM, it starts fairly long time ago up in Brisbane. And at that time there was nothing in place. There was no inspired by FM kind of things. There was nothing. And after a few years, they started to let's say create this idea of inspired by FM, group of people who would try to share their, I guess, way of practicing what they have found valuable during anything that they have done with FM. As you said correctly, there's no curriculum or box to tick in order to become something. Honestly, through the years, they have thrown out there also other kind of titles or something. And I never knew when I was or I wasn't allowed to anything. It was usually through random discovery, like going back on their website and say, oh, okay, next to my name, there's also that other thing. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, I didn't know that I could do that, or I feel like I could anything. But let's say it was endorsed by FM, for whatever that means.
What would be an example?
There would be an example, somewhat. Be an example.
What would be an example there?
Oh, what would be an example? Yeah. Well, the example was with this little tool that was created back in the day. Was that I met the very first time in Europe. It had a completely different name. Neither the latest and not the previous one. And yes, through the years, once I was doing a mentorship, and then I discovered that, oh, okay, it seems that I'm recognized as an instructor of. And then at some point, I was like, oh, okay, cool. What? I can't even remember, because I think that now they took down that part. I was teacher or master of, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, their names, they might be helpful in some regards. I guess one can take them as a recognition for the effort and the commitment put into something. In saying that, and here I finish because I know that I can talk for hours, so I'll try to be a little bit more condensed. One of the biggest things that attracted me to FM at the beginning was really this absence of any recognition, formal or informal. So it was all about you doing what you think and you feel is okay to do, keep doing, change, or stop is on you. That was one of the big drive for me.
Cool.
And just for context, Dean, before we move on there, Eduardo, I assume you're talking about one of the speed tools or whatever it's called these days.
I don't know.
But I bring that up. I bring that up
Yeah.
only for people because there are practice tools within Fighting Monkey system that are great, that are very attractive, certainly to me as someone who enjoys having things around that remind me to do things, whether that's a tennis ball and a string or these speed tools or some karate belts that are used. They're fantastic. I find them fantastic things to bring into a room, to work with my daughter here. We've got a tennis ball in the middle of our lounge room at home. We're constantly moving around it, and it just invites this partner, a second person into the room, maybe when you haven't got someone to work with, or it certainly invites this extra entity to work with, which, I think is a fantastic part of FM practice. Just wanted to mention that for people, that it's not just, not just bodies in a room.
Yeah, the tools are part of the practice. And that one is the tool I was referring to, the 9-speed tool, nowadays mentioned as OSO or whatever. And the tools that we meet in practice try to be as abstract as possible. Where abstract, I would say that is not, of course, the tool itself. It's something concrete, but it's abstract the approach you have to the tool, the relationship that you create with the tool. Therefore, I find it, for example, very inspiring when in my teaching I meet someone who hasn't had any experience with this tool, which I have spent a lot of time with, because as soon as I start to expose myself to something regularly, I think that I start to become biased in my experience. My previous knowledge, my previous exposition to this tool, this interaction, will inevitably come within myself when I encounter this tool again. So I don't have this beautiful white canvas on which I can draw on. That canvas, for as much as I can pretend that is white, is a little bit used. And so I'm very excited when people have not met a tool, whatever tool is, and we just allow ourselves time and space to explore and speculate about what it can be done with the least amount of information given about what we can do. Maybe the question could be like, a more meaningful question could be, what could we do with this object in order to achieve this or solve this problem or do these other things? And then you let people find their own way of using and exploring this object, if it makes any sense. Yep.
Sure, thank you. And so, Dean?
Yeah, so for me, I was attracted to FM originally actually because of a video they put out, which was called What is Fighting Monkey? And in there, I saw a lot of playfulness. So using kind of, from an outsider point of view, it might look like some games that people play.
Yeah.
And a classic one just for people to visualize would be one where we're having our hands on top of each other, and Eduardo would try and, yes. And this is kind of one game that we could be playing. But what I love during this video is they're also playing a second game where I'd be trying to step on Eduardo's feet. Meanwhile, the people can't see it, but meanwhile, the other game is happening. And I just love how when you're like adding up these multiple kind of games and squashing them together, the interesting, playfulness, fun, the relationship gets developed between the people, but of course also the physical qualities of how it shapes you and how it shapes the way you perceive the world. I was really attracted to that. I grew up playing soccer, and I've been an artificial intelligence researcher for 18 years. Also playing touch football, and in these kind of environments, things are pretty strict in terms of how they're trained, and people tend to just do what's always been done. And so what I love about this kind of one aspect of Fighting Monkey, which is this play-based approach, using things that look a little bit like games that we actually call movement situations, which is a bigger discussion. It lets you a bit break out of those habits, and I think that's been really valuable to me in my life.
Lovely. Well,
sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say, in terms of what I like to share during this workshop is a little bit around these, let's call them ways of playing, or a model of playing. So how can we have an interaction between the two people or more people in a group or a team, and be able to change the roles and goals and constraints to have very different kind of interactions. And so it's kind of giving people an experience of playfulness that is outside the frame of a normal kind of sport that they would usually encounter these things. And meanwhile, just having a lot of fun and developing some good physical practice. So, yeah.
Well, it gives us a little bit of insight into both of you. It's still mysterious, but it's always good to leave it that way. Let's briefly mention Colin. I mean, I've had the joy of training very briefly with all of you. Eduardo only for one day, but Dean and I spent at least an intensive week together and chatting. Colin I've spent a lot of time with because he was a trainer of mine for a couple of years. And, well, I don't know where to place Colin. I guess he comes from many backgrounds, contact improvisation for one of them. He's the head of movement at VCA, College of the Arts in Melbourne here. And apart from the dance aspects, also, I guess, backgrounds in Muay Thai and Filipino martial arts, amongst other things. So he can hit and he can dance. He can also lift weights quite well. What would you add to that?
Yeah, physical practice you do.
Well, I met Colin in Europe at my very first European intensive in Slovakia. And I'm very, very grateful for the meeting, as I still remember the time where we were working as partners, and there was this task which I rationalized fairly quickly. And then I was pretty much giving up because, well, I solved it here, so it's done. And he was all in. And as an artist, he was totally into his creation and not stopping. And looking at him, then his energies that just drew me back into it. And so I joined him again. And I'm so happy that I did, and I encountered him for that. After that, we did meet a number of times down in Melbourne. I ran a workshop at his place when he was running things also from his little space, and we ran also workshop together. And it's just I really like him because he can be soft but quite direct. So it's beautiful to deal with someone like him. I think if there's something that will summarize him, if I would try to summarize him, is his honesty. He's transparent in what he wants to say and communicate. I like him. So come along and meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope Colin looks at this. That was a very lovely and heartfelt description of him. Yeah. Dean, anything to add?
I don't know him.
Oh, cool. That's great.
The only thing I do know about him, which intrigues me, is that he's working at this Victorian College of the Arts, presumably doing some training of people who are doing acting and such things. So that would be a very interesting creative task, since those people there that he's training have their own problems they're trying to solve and things they're trying to improve in himself. And then he is there somehow giving some inputs and some tasks and training to help them with that. I think it's very beautiful. So, but I guess I'll meet him in Melbourne.
We all will. Well, look, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for anyone to work with. It's lovely having different elements in the room, and you can get stuck in a bit of a rut with one trainer. I'm working with a personal trainer at the moment, and she's amazing. But we are certainly in a particular stream of things. Working with other trainers is a great opportunity to get the body repatterned in some ways. I wonder, let's talk about the day a little bit and just the benefits of coming along, and maybe the wider benefits of why would we do this in general. For people who, I don't know, let's say they're heavily into ecstatic dance, or maybe other types of people are more heavily into gym work or some linear training of some fashion. Why do they want to come and move in these weird and wonderful ways that FM practice generally has us moving? Why does play or playfulness add anything to our movement, or to our lives, more to the point, actually?
Okay, I'm gonna. You just inspire me, and I hope that this example makes any sense. So I can order a meal that is done, right? And all the ingredients are there for me. All the combinations are there for me. The only thing that I need to do is to consume it. And if I want to be strict, even how I consume it can be told. I can have instruction for it. Or I can, and I will need more time, I can just go out there where there is anything. It doesn't have to be a romantic forest, but I can go just out there and try to let my being out there make things emerge for me and be inspired by what I'm going to meet. And therefore, I might eat at different times. I might encounter something that I did not expect, and so forth. So my nutrition, I believe, it becomes richer on a variety of layers and levels, not just from the actual content, but also meaning the food that I'm putting in, but also in the whole process, right? So I'm into the process. I let the process sort of talk to me, inspire me. I let things emerge, and I embrace this emergence as I want. So I can say yes, I can say no, I can say, I might have just a little taste. I don't know if it makes any sense, but it's for me, translated into exercise. You can come, I can tell you what to do, how to do, when to do it. Or I can invite you to something where we have, first of all, 3 different people who are going to share something that something will be different both in content and the way we share. And you will have the time to discover more about your experience than just be told. The effort you're going to put in, it might be bigger, but the reward, in my opinion, in terms of like, wow, I'm discovering something, I'm connecting with myself, what I'm doing, and who I'm doing this with in a totally different level. Well, I don't like really the word level, but in a totally different way.
Yeah, and entirely different for me quality of how you're engaging with the space. And I think that makes great sense. I haven't actually heard necessarily that metaphor used for movement, but in my body it lands. Sometimes I go to dance on Friday nights for 3 hours and I'm just on my train tracks and doing my normal stuff. I'm dancing in my normal ways. I'm interacting with the normal people that are there. And yeah, it's interesting and my body feels better for it. But then if I actually go, what's actually here to play with? Like, what does my body really want to do? That self-inquiry aspect, when you can really feel it, is so much more beneficial. And to your point, you have to put more effort in, and you get so much more out of it. And the effort isn't necessarily sort of muscular, like heavy, sweaty effort. It's just actually engaging with the space more. I think that defines.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
You go.
I think that the two words that nowadays often echoes in my head are test and taste. That I don't know if it English makes any sense, but for me, it's like I'm into this space with someone else who proposes something, and that is an opportunity to test myself. How do I interact in these things that I know a little about it, or maybe even nothing? So how do I behave in those situations? How do I behave when something is not told? And then I can taste it. I behave, and then I'm like, okay, I see myself doing those things. And then I decide if the flavor that I'm tasting, it's something I like, I want to change it, I don't want it. Again, I have that opportunity because I exposed myself to this, let's say, unknown place.
Yeah, I just only wanted to add to this that in this workshop, for different types of people, there'll be different things to taste. So there will definitely be some movement propositions, whether they're individual tasks or otherwise, that will feel a bit more clear about what is supposed to happen, feel a little bit more controlled. Perhaps you could put it this way. So this could be learning a movement pattern in a more slow way or a more fast way, but it seems more clear what you're supposed to do. And then for people who are, more playful and more open, that might be a place that will be an interesting zone to learn something about themselves. Versus at a different end of the spectrum, which we're talking about quite a lot now, where things are slightly less clear, maybe a little bit more improvised. The interactions are a little bit more unfolding. For people who are more controlled and precise, that might be an interesting zone for them to be in. So there'll be things for all kinds of people, I think.
Plenty of courses. It's like you go to a restaurant and there's plenty of courses, not just one.
Yeah.
Just so many different ones, different flavors that come in, different chefs that propose something, and you're there like,
yeah.
So yeah, I think it'll be fun. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. At the end of the day,
I think the main ingredient, at least for me, is that has to be fun and enjoyable, so that you would like somewhat be exposed again.
And that you feel good after.
Yeah.
We tend to aim in these kind of workshops to have a modulation of energy. People might be a bit scared at 6 hours. It might sound like a long time of training, but we were hoping to have the energy going up and down in such a way that practice is changing that we will feel good at the end of the day, or at least that's our aim.
And it's an inclusive practice. So I would love to see a group that is very heterogenic. Like you can find the athlete, the dancers, the performer, but you can find also the housewife, the grandmother, the dad, I don't like really that kind of name, but let's say the couch potato, or the person, let's say the one who does not expose himself to a lot of physical training. And everyone can find a place where to have a dialogue and learn from each other. And also in that sense, we expose ourselves to this situation. And it's like, do I refuse a certain situation? If I play with someone who is 3 times bigger than me, what can I find? Or if it's very tiny, what can I find?
That's real life as well. We're all dealing with ever-changing situations and world. It's not, I'd love to be in a room of, dancers and movers and everything's very easy and very flowy and all that sort of stuff. But it's not until you come up against, a massive height difference or skill difference, whatever it is. And then, I have to adjust and I have to really slow down. And that's, as you're saying, that's where some of the gold can be. But I think for also people who are questioning maybe why come to this beyond, having fun and moving and feeling fit, all the rest of it. This does have an effect in real life. You can get back into your job on Monday morning and going, I battled some pretty interesting situations on the weekend and I'm here and I smiled through it and enjoyed. And now I'm up against, whoever, your boss or some new employee or whatever it is. And it's the same thing, at least at a meta level. So, I really encourage anyone to come along and try it. And as Eduardo's pointed to, it's for anyone. So the room should be interesting. There goes my little person in the background, which might mean I have to move on into lunch mode. But thank you very much for the lunchtime chat, gentlemen, and looking very forward to having you in Melbourne. So we're in June 1st, 10 till 5 p.m. with an hour for lunch. As you guys have said, that's 6 hours of fun and practice and meeting people and really enjoying the space. I hope we get a big mix of people there. Is there anything you'd like to sign off with in the last minute here?
No, just come
and play,
enjoy and play. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity. Thank you for putting the 3 teachers together. I think that's super unique. And really looking forward to it. We look forward to welcoming you in Melbourne. Yeah, pleasure, absolute pleasure. I can't wait to do more practice. And if anything, for me, reaching out for perhaps the parents who might be listening to this, it just informs your life so much more to come back and actually be able to move with your kids more, play with them, and have different movement games, beyond what they're learning at school or beyond the norm. It really provides such a new flavor to life, and not just for parents, obviously.
Yeah.
So thank you, and we'll see you not that far away.
Thanks, Alex.
Will do.
See ya.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Bye.